She stepped out of the club's back door and straight into the rain-soaked darkness, sequins catching the weak red neon that flickered over the alley walls. One hand pressed hard against her side, fingers slick with fresh blood where the knife had cut too close. Behind her, the bass from the club turned into a distant, muffled thud as the metal door slammed shut. Heavy footsteps hit the concrete, closing in fast. A man shouted her stage name, not with desire this time, but with threat. Fear slammed into her chest, cold and familiar. This was supposed to be the night she finally did it. Get close enough to kill the Mafia prince who owned this club and walk away free. Instead, she was running from her own handler's warning. The man chasing her yelled after her, his voice echoing off brick. The narrator explains that he shouted, "Aria! You don't walk away before the job is done." She didn't answer. She just ran, shoes slipping on the wet ground, breath sharp as she pushed deeper into the alley. She thought she was running from her hunter, not straight into the arms of her target. At the far end of the alley, under a lone street lamp, a tall figure stood waiting, dark suit, shirt open at the collar, rain beating on his shoulders like the night knew better than to touch him. Aria stumbled, shoes skidding as she came to a stop. The light caught his face. Lorenzo Valenti, the owner of the club. The Mafia prince she had been sent to kill. His gaze dropped immediately to her hand, still pressed against her bleeding side. For a second, the alley, the rain, the danger behind her all seemed to pause. For a heartbeat, her fear twisted into something else, shock, and the sick realization that fate had an ugly sense of humor. He didn't move at first. He just watched her, and when he finally spoke, his voice stayed low and controlled. The narrator tells us he said, "Didn't think my dancers bled on their way out of work." She forced air into her lungs and answered that she was fine, that she had taken the wrong door and would manage. From the darkness behind her, the footsteps sped up again, and the man chasing her shouted her name once more. He saw blood on his stage girl's fingers, and a shadow chasing her that didn't fear his name. The alley seemed to narrow as another man barreled into the light, leather jacket, a scar slicing across his cheek, eyes locked on Aria with wild intent. He reached for her, fingers clamping around her arm and yanking her back. Before she could react, Lorenzo stepped between them, one hand closing around the enforcer's wrist with calm, unhurried strength. The movement stopped like it had hit a wall. For a moment, Aria's fear shifted into shock as she watched the balance flip, the hunter suddenly looking very small. The man snarled that she belonged to Matteo, that she wasn't done yet. Lorenzo didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The narrator tells us he simply said, "She works in my club. She leaves when I say she leaves." The enforcer tried to jerk his arm free, but Lorenzo's grip stayed firm. The narrator explains that Lorenzo went on, his tone dropping colder as he told the man, "You tell Matteo if he wants to bleed someone connected to my place, he does it through me. Not in my alley like a rat." The man's bravado faltered. When Lorenzo finally released his wrist, he stepped back, muttering that Matteo wouldn't like this, before disappearing into the dark. Aria had just watched her handler's man retreat. She knew Matteo only answered defiance with one thing: punishment. Rain softened into a fine mist, the red glow of the club's neon sign humming behind Lorenzo like a warning halo. He turned back to her, eyes traveling down to the blood soaking through her costume. Slowly, he stepped closer. She instinctively tried to put space between them, but her back met the cool brick wall. The alley suddenly felt too small for the two of them and everything she was hiding. Her pulse jumped. Fear of Matteo, fear of her mission, and now the sharp, unwanted awareness of being this close to the man she was supposed to kill. He reached out and caught her wrist before she could hide the wound again, his grip steady but not cruel. The narrator explains he told her, "Stop. Let me see." She insisted it was nothing, that she would handle it herself. His eyes met hers, cutting through the lie. The narrator says he told her, "You're bleeding in my alley, from a man using a name I don't like near my club." That's not nothing. In her pocket, A vibration buzzed sharply against her hip. Her phone. Mateo's name flashed on the screen. Her handler was calling. But the man in front of her had just closed his hand around her fate. A black car idled at the mouth of the alley, headlights slicing through the rain in twin beams. Beyond it, the city glowed dim and distant. Lorenzo slipped the phone from her pocket before she could react. He glanced at the caller ID, Matteo Ricci, then slid the phone into his own jacket without answering. He guided her toward the car with a hand at the small of her back, steady and firm. Panic rose sharp in her throat. She was caught between the man who owned her mission and the man who unknowingly owned her target. She dug her heels in for a second, trying to resist. She told him she could go home, that she was fine. The narrator explains that he didn't argue, didn't sound angry. He just said, "You're coming with me. I have a doctor. And I don't like loose ends bleeding outside my doors." The driver stepped out and opened the rear door. Lorenzo didn't shove her. He just stood there, watching, his presence alone making it clear that staying in the alley was not an option. Too weak to fight without exposing everything she was, Aria climbed into the back seat. Lorenzo followed her in, closing the door behind them. As the car pulled away from the curb, another vehicle eased out of the shadows at the far end of the alley, its headlights staying low, keeping its distance as it followed. She wasn't just being taken into his world. She was being watched every second she got closer to him. Inside the car, the city's lights slid across the windows in streaks of gold and blue. The interior was quiet, the only sound the low hum of the engine and her uneven breathing. His jacket was still draped over her shoulders, heavier now that the adrenaline was fading. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted it, and the thin chain around her neck slipped free. The chipped metal dog tag fell against her collarbone, catching the faint dashboard light. The edges were burned and scarred. Lorenzo's gaze dropped to it. The narrator explains he asked, with a small nod toward the tag, "Military." Her hand flew to it, closing around the metal like it might vanish if she let go. She answered quietly that it was her brother's. She added, in a voice worn down by old memories, that he had owed someone, and now she was just paying off what was left. Lorenzo studied her for a long breath. Then he said that debts like that didn't usually end with a single cut in an alley. She turned her face toward the window, watching the rain chase itself across the glass. "That's the problem," she whispered. "They don't end at all." He heard the word debt. He didn't hear the truth beneath it, that she wasn't just paying for her brother's past. She was here to collect on his. The car descended into a private underground garage, the kind where every surface gleamed and every shadow held a guard with a weapon. Overhead lights reflected off black SUVs lined with military precision. Lorenzo stepped out first, scanning the perimeter with quiet, practiced awareness. Only after confirming the area was secure did he reach back for her. Aria ignored the offered hand and slid out on her own. Her legs shook when her shoes hit the concrete. She felt painfully out of place here, like a wounded bird dropped into a wolf's den. He motioned her toward a sleek private elevator. The narrator explains that he told her, "My doctor's upstairs. You're getting that stitched properly." She whispered that she didn't need all this, that she just needed to go. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. The narrator delivers his response, "You're bleeding in my car. That makes you my responsibility tonight." The doors slid shut, and she realized she was going straight into the home of the man she was meant to kill. She had spent weeks trying to get close to him. Tonight, fate had thrown her into his world all at once. The penthouse opened like a world untouched by chaos. Tall glass windows, warm amber lights, the city below glittering beneath the storm. Lorenzo walked inside as if he owned the sky itself. He set his jacket aside, grabbed a towel from a cabinet, and handed it to her without a single word. Then he poured a glass of water, the sound unnervingly gentle in the quiet room. The unexpected softness cracked through her armor. The narrator tells us he said simply, "Sit. You're shaking." Her legs gave out before she managed to answer. The couch was soft, too safe. He noticed her trembling, lifted his jacket again, and draped it around her shoulders with a slow, deliberate care. "You're freezing," he murmured. His voice was iron wrapped in warmth. It was the first kind touch she'd felt in years, and it terrified her more than the knife in the alley. Bright white light spilled across her side as Lorenzo's doctor knelt to examine the wound. Aria flinched when the antiseptic touched skin, her breath catching like she'd been slapped. Lorenzo stood close, too close, arms folded, jaw tight, eyes watching every move. She hated how exposed she felt. She hated that he could see her weakness. The doctor glanced up and said, "This wasn't an accident." "Who did this?" Aria stared at the floor. "Someone I work for," she whispered. Lorenzo's expression sharpened, darkening as if a switch flipped behind his eyes. "Work for," he repeated. "Or belong to?" She didn't answer. The narrator explains the silence that followed. He knew the tone of obedience. Because he grew up in a world built on it. The doctor began stitching carefully. Lorenzo didn't look away once. For the first time, he wondered if she wasn't running from the man who attacked her, but from the life she'd been forced into. A sharp knock broke the quiet. One of Lorenzo's men stepped inside, rain dripping from his coat, voice low as he leaned close to his boss. Aria watched Lorenzo's posture shift, controlled calm turning into something darker. The narrator relays the guard's words. "Car's been circling the block. Same plate from the alley. Matteo Ricci." Lorenzo's eyes flicked to Aria. She froze, just for a heartbeat, but it was enough. Fear rippled through her like a shockwave. The narrator says Lorenzo replied, voice like stone, "He's looking for someone." Aria swallowed hard. Matteo wasn't circling for Lorenzo. He was circling for her. Her handler had not only followed her, he was closing in. The doctor left, and silence filled the penthouse again. Heavy, expectant, Aria rose from the couch, grabbing her things with trembling hands. She barely made 2 steps before Lorenzo blocked her path, effortlessly, silently. Her panic spiked. She said she needed to leave, that she had to go back, that if she didn't, things would get worse. The narrator delivers Lorenzo's answer. "No. Not with Ricci outside." Her voice broke. "You don't understand what he does to people who disobey." His jaw tightened. "Worse than this?" he asked, nodding to her stitched side. Her eyes stung. She couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. He stepped closer, tone low and unyielding. The narrator relays his words. "Then let it get worse with me instead." Her breath hitched. She didn't know whether he was protecting her or claiming her. But both were dangerous. His control was suffocating. His protection was overwhelming. And she didn't know which one scared her more. He led her to a guest room. Soft lamplight, a wide window overlooking the storm, and a bed that felt like it belonged in another life. When he left, she locked the door immediately and slid down against it, shaking. Her phone sat on the nightstand where Lorenzo had placed it. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. A new message glowed on the screen. From Matteo Ricci, "You're inside his home. Finish the job soon, or you're done." Her stomach dropped. The narrator explains her whisper, barely audible through the storm outside. "I don't want to kill him." But outside her door, Lorenzo stood in the hallway, unaware he was protecting the assassin sent to end him. She wasn't just hiding from her handler anymore. She was hiding from the truth that would destroy them both. The storm outside thickened, rain hammering against the penthouse windows in streaks of silver. Across the room, Lorenzo stood with his phone to his ear, every line of his body pulled tight. Aria stayed in the hallway, hidden just enough to watch him. The narrator explains the voice on the call, Lorenzo's head of security, saying, "Someone's been asking about your father's movements. Same car from earlier. Ricci's men." Lorenzo's jaw flexed. His free hand curled into a fist at his side. Aria felt a cold wave roll across her skin. Matteo wasn't just circling the club. He was circling Lorenzo's family. Lorenzo ended the call and exhaled slowly, his gaze drifting toward her closed door. He sensed danger closing in. He just didn't know it was standing inside his home as well. Beneath his jacket. His expression softened for one breath before hardening again. Lorenzo stepped toward her. She stepped back. The space between them was small, fragile, dangerous. Her voice cracked first. "I can't stay here. You don't understand what you're doing." The narrator delivers his response, calm but unyielding, "Keeping you alive." She shook her head so quickly her vision blurred. "No. You're making it worse." His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in concern. "What did Matteo do to you?" She looked away, swallowing the truth she couldn't speak. "You have no idea what it's like to belong to someone like him," she whispered. Lorenzo's voice dropped to steel. "No one owns you." But the panic in her eyes said otherwise. Her truth slipped out before she could hide it, and he felt it hit him like a blade. The hallway lights painted soft gold across the floor. Aria opened her mouth to speak, but the pain hit too suddenly. Her knees buckled. Before she hit the ground, Lorenzo caught her around the waist, lowering her gently onto the couch. One hand cupped her cheek, anchoring her breath. She hated how her body leaned toward him, instinctively, trustingly. "Easy," he murmured, voice rough with concern. "Breathe." Her lashes fluttered. Her breathing steadied. The dog tag slipped free from her collar as she shifted, falling onto her chest with a soft metallic tap. Lorenzo's gaze dropped. His expression changed. Slowly, sharply, like a man recognizing a ghost. The name on the metal was burned and battered. Moretti. Her last name. Her brother's last name. That single word shattered something open inside him. The penthouse lights dimmed behind him as Lorenzo walked into his office, shutting the door quietly. He unlocked a steel safe built into the wall, hidden behind framed art, and pulled out folders marked with old dates and crimes burned into memory. A single desk lamp illuminated pictures of a warehouse engulfed in flames, reports stamped confidential, casualty lists scribbled with names. His fingers stilled over one name circled in red ink. Diego Moretti. The narrator explains the chilling note beneath it, "Surviving child unaccounted for." And another line, scribbled sideways in an old investigator's hand, "Intel source, M. Ricci." Lorenzo's breath left him in a slow, shaking exhale. Matteo Ricci, the man he once saved. The same man who betrayed him. The same man who created a tragedy. The same man who controlled Aria. Her dog tag wasn't a keepsake. It was a warning he should have seen long ago. When Lorenzo stepped back into the living room, Aria was sitting upright, clutching the dog tag as if it were the last thread holding her together. He approached slowly, crouching in front of her again, lowering himself for someone the world had only ever beaten down. "Aria," he said softly. "Your brother, what was his name?" Her breath faltered. "Why?" "Because the tag says Moretti." Her fingers tightened reflexively around the metal. "Diego," she whispered. "His name was Diego." Lorenzo let the truth land. Then he told her quietly. "The warehouse fire that killed him. Matteo caused it. He fed us lies. Told us the place would be empty. My men trusted that intel. Your family paid for it." Her lips parted, trembling. You knew." "I found out minutes ago." His voice broke on the edges of anger and regret. I didn't know. I swear to you. Her tears hit her hands like falling glass. She had carried hatred for years, aimed at the wrong man. She lifted her eyes to his. Mateo said if I got close to you, if I finished the job, I'd get revenge. I'd get to live. Lorenzo's voice grew deeper, firmer. What job? Her breath shattered. You. Silence hit like a blow. I was sent to kill you, she whispered. Tonight. Her confession hung in the air, raw, irreversible, trembling. He didn't react with violence, and that terrified her more than if he had. Aria pulled her knees to her chest, burying her face in shaking hands. Her whole body trembled, fear, guilt, grief drowning her breath. Lorenzo lowered himself beside her on the couch, not touching her, just close enough for her to feel steadiness radiating off him. You should call your men, she choked. Have me thrown out. I deserve it. He shook his head slowly. No. You deserve the truth. And you deserve a life that isn't built on someone else's lies. Her breath hitched. Lorenzo. I didn't want to be this person. You're not. His voice cracked softly. Mateo did this to you. He turned your pain into his weapon. A tear slid down her cheek. I don't know how to stop it. You don't. He finally moved, letting his hand hover near hers. You let me do it for you. She lifted her head, eyes wide and broken, and for the first time since the fire, she wasn't alone in her grief. She had been sent to end his life, yet here he was, offering her back her own. The storm outside shook the penthouse windows, thunder rolling low like a warning the city didn't understand. Aria sat curled on the couch, eyes swollen from crying, hands still gripping the dog tag like a lifeline. Lorenzo stood slowly. Everything in him had changed since the moment she confessed. He crossed the room with controlled, deliberate footsteps and lowered himself beside her, not looming over her, not intimidating her, just choosing proximity in a way no one ever had for her. Then he held out his hand. For a second, she didn't move. She expected cuffs, pain, punishment. Instead, he helped her sit up straighter, guided her gently so she wouldn't pull her stitches. She stared at him, bewildered. Lorenzo, I told you I was sent to kill you. The narrator delivers his reply, voice steady. And I heard you. Her breath caught. Then why are you? Because you're not the enemy, he said. Not to me. Her eyes widened, breaking all over again. You're not leaving tonight. Not while Ricci's men are out there. Not while he's hunting you. Her voice cracked. But I'm the reason he's hunting you. Lorenzo shook his head. No. Mateo is the reason. He used you. He lied to you. He made you bleed for a revenge that was never yours. He stood, jaw tight with decision. The narrator explains his final line, I'm not letting him have you. He wasn't choosing revenge. He was choosing her. Lightning flashed through the windows, casting silver across her face. Aria turned away, shaking as the truth she'd buried for years clawed upward. I need to tell you everything, she whispered. Lorenzo moved closer, lowering himself in front of her again, patient and quiet. Her breath came out in fragments. After the fire, Mateo found me. He told me you caused it. He said if I did what he wanted, if I killed you, he'd let me go. She sucked in a shaky breath. But I kept delaying. I couldn't do it. I never wanted to. Her hand trembled over her stitched side. So he sent a reminder. Tonight. The cut was a warning. The next one, she swallowed, voice breaking, will be my execution. Lorenzo's breathing shifted, deeper, colder, controlled the way a storm is controlled seconds before lightning hits. He asked quietly, "What happens if you refuse to finish the job?" Her answer was barely audible. "He kills me, and then he sends someone else after you." Lorenzo's hands curled into fists, knuckles whitening. Not from betrayal. From fury. For the first time, he understood exactly how much she had been surviving and how close she was to losing everything. He stood and walked toward the massive windows, rain trailing down like the city was crying in sync with them. His reflection stared back at him, a man shaped by violence, guilt, and responsibility. But when he turned, something in his eyes had changed. He took a slow step toward her. Then another. Until he was standing close enough that she could feel the weight of every word before he spoke. The narrator delivers it with steady gravity. "No innocent dies under my name. Not your brother. Not you." Aria's breath stilled. Lorenzo continued, voice low and raw. "Matteo used my world, my rules, to destroy your life. He turned your grief into a weapon he could point at me." He crouched again, leveling with her. "Listen carefully," he said. "You are not a weapon. You are not a debt. And you are not dying for him." Her eyes filled again, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. His voice softened only for her. "If anyone comes for you now, they answer to me." She felt something break open, a wound she didn't know could heal. He wasn't redeeming himself. He was claiming her safety as his responsibility. A sharp buzz ripped through the room, snapping both their heads toward the security panel. Red lights flashed. Lorenzo moved fast, tapping in a code. Camera feeds lit up across the wall, cold fluorescent hallways, elevator footage, lobby angles. Aria's blood ran cold. 3 men in dark coats stepped out of the elevator onto his floor. Matteo's men. Armed. Moving with purpose. Then her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message that made her throat close. From Matteo Ricci, last chance. Kill him now. Or you die instead. Her breath stuttered. Lorenzo picked up the phone from the table and read the message. His expression didn't explode. It condensed, sharpening into something lethal and precise. He lifted his gaze to her. The narrator relays his voice, quiet, controlled, terrifying. He just declared war. Footsteps echoed closer on the security feed. Aria whispered, "He'll kill me." "No," Lorenzo said, stepping in front of her, body instinctively shielding hers. "I won't let him." And as the elevator camera flickered again, Matteo's men nearing the door, the final realization hit Aria like a blow. Her refusal to kill Lorenzo hadn't saved her. It had triggered her death sentence. And Lorenzo Valenti was the only thing standing between her and the executioner sent to finish the job. Thunder rumbled above the city, a low vibration that echoed through the penthouse floor. Aria stood near the couch, hands trembling so violently she could barely breathe. Her face was pale, eyes glassy with fear, the kind that comes when death is no longer a threat, but a promise. Lorenzo approached slowly, movements controlled, deliberate. Not to corner her, to steady her. He lifted a hand and paused just inches from her cheek, letting her see he wasn't going to force anything. Her breath broke in jagged pieces. The narrator explains his voice, soft, almost tender. "Aria, look at me." She tried, but her gaze kept snapping to the security feeds where Matteo's men moved through the hallway. "Breathe," he murmured, stepping closer. "You're safe right now. Right here. With me." A tear slipped down her cheek. "No, I'm not," she whispered. "He's going to kill me. He always said, if I failed, he'd." He cut in gently. "You're not failing anything. Not anymore." He took her wrist, grounding her with a warm, steady touch. For the first time, her fear didn't feel like a weight she carried alone. Rain streaked the windows behind her, each drop a silver line against the dark city. Aria sank onto the edge of the couch, the weight of reality pressing down on her. Lorenzo stood in front of her, not towering, not commanding, simply present. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "I'm not killing you." Lorenzo didn't flinch. He didn't look shocked. He looked relieved. The narrator relays her next breath, small and breaking. "If Matteo ordered my execution, then that's what happens. Her throat tightened. "I can't have your blood on my hands." Lorenzo crouched in front of her again, closing the space between them. "You're not dying for him," he said. "You're not dying at all." She lifted her gaze, lost, terrified, hopeful. "What do I do?" she whispered. His answer was quiet, sure, final. "You stay alive. A beat. And you let me take care of the rest." For the first time, survival felt like a choice, not an order. The dog tag slipped from her fingers, landing gently on the couch cushion between them. It glinted under the warm lamplight, scarred, burned, a fragment of a life stolen too soon. Lorenzo reached for it slowly, as if touching something sacred. He turned the metal over in his hand, tracing the damaged edges. Every scar told a story, one she'd carried alone until now. Aria watched him, breath trembling. The narrator conveys his quiet words. This didn't survive the fire, so Matteo could use it as a chain. Her breath hitched. She didn't expect his next move. He pressed the dog tag back into her palm, then closed her fingers around it with his own. His voice dropped, low and warm and unshakable. "Diego wouldn't want your life tied to Matteo's orders. He'd want you to choose your future. Starting now." The warmth of his hand over hers made her eyes sting. Her brother's memory stopped being a wound and became a reason to live. Security monitors flickered across the wall, showing silhouettes gathering outside the penthouse door. Matteo's men were seconds away, shadows with weapons and orders that would not be questioned. But inside, the room felt still. Lorenzo stepped behind Aria, one hand settling on her shoulder with quiet certainty. Protective. Steady. Unmoving. They faced the screens together. Aria whispered, voice barely audible, "They won't stop." Lorenzo's answer was calm, deadly, absolute. "No, they won't." He leaned slightly closer, voice dropping to a vow, "But neither will I." She looked up at him, and in that moment, she wasn't the assassin sent to kill him. She wasn't the girl Matteo had owned. She wasn't a weapon. She was a woman standing beside someone who refused to let her die. The narrator delivers the final line, soft as a promise, sharp as a threat. "Whoever comes for her next will face him first." Thunder rolled again, shaking the glass as the men approached. And for the first time since her brother died, she wasn't running anymore. Final emotional beat. This was no longer her mission. This was their war.